Hello, Mr. Billy Davis. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I am just fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us today. So before we join, I always like to give our disclaimer, give my statement that although each speaker here has been doing what they do for many years, some have designations and or degrees and experience in their respective fields. Your attendance confirms that you will not hold us liable in any way for the risk, danger, injury, or damages caused to you and or the success or failure of your business or any other topic or discussion through these meetings. So I needed to be able to say that. And welcome to the B Project today. We're going to be talking about insurance. And I just want to give a recap for last week. Last week we had Lolita Fagan Thompson on, and she talked about forecasting and budgeting and taxation for businesses. That is just such a critical part of owning a business, which I'm sure, Billy, you can agree with and identify with. That is usually the part of the business that causes businesses to fail, is not being able to forecast, budget, and have the right taxation. Going in, knowing that information, you're trying to fly by the seat of your pants and you get your pants caught. So that's what we talked about last week. But that recording is on our Facebook page, and it is also on YouTube. So if you want to know more information about that, you can always inbox me or ask me, and I'm happy to share that information with you. So Billy, today we're talking about insurance. You know, insurance. You think insurance is a boring topic?
I think it's a topic that no one loves, even insurance agents. It's a topic that even I don't wake up in the morning thinking, oh boy, what's happening in the insurance world today? So no, it's unfortunately though, it's a necessary need. So it needs to be talked about, because the last thing you want to do is pay for something that's not going to take care of you when you need it.
You mean to tell me that you can pay for insurance and you don't have the right stuff?
Well, that's absolutely correct, Angela. You know, there's so many different types of insurance. You know, there's insurance for everything, and insurance terms get mixed up with what they really go to. For example, I've heard a lot of people say uninsured motorist protects you if I forgot what, it was a funny one that I heard. Uninsured motorist is for people in your car who don't have insurance or something like that. I forgot what it was, but and gap insurance. I've heard what people say gap insurance is for the gap that you don't have insurance. It covers you during that time. So, and that can be further from the truth. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, creative thinkers.
Yeah, I'll give them that.
I love creative thinkers, but I want to tell people a little bit about you before we get started. I've known you for seems like a lifetime, but I want to let everybody know that we work really hard to try to get experts in certain areas or people who have vast experience to come in and talk about certain things. And Billy, you've been doing this for over 20 years now. You've been in the insurance game almost as long as me.
Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it, right? So I just want you guys to know that Billy does have over 20 years experience as a professional insurance agent and an insurance agency owner. Those are two different things. Okay, shameless plug for the BDIG, the Billy Davis Insurance Group. See the hat and the shirt.
No shame.
Okay.
No shame.
His career began when he represented American Family, and he soared. He soared at American Family. He was their all-American level, and he consistently led as a leader in all lines of insurance during his time with American Family. And I also want you all to know that in 2007, Billy decided, because his customers needed more, he wanted them to have better choices. He became what is known in the insurance industry as an independent insurance agency owner. So what that meant was he left the company he was with, what we call captive companies, American Family, and so many other companies that you may see on television is what we call captive carriers or captive companies. He left and he went on his own and he formed the Billy Davis Insurance Group, and now he represents over 10 top ranking carriers in his office. So kudos to you, B-Big. All right. So as you see, Billy kind of knows his stuff. And I love talking about insurance with insurance people because you learn a lot. You find out, oh man, I didn't even think about it like you did. You learn a lot, but I really love educating people about insurance and business because nobody likes buying insurance. So why do they even need to have some insurance, Billy? Why would a business, especially one that's just starting out? I mean, they don't have any money, so why do they need it?
Well, before I get started in insurance, let me say this to everybody or to anyone who really don't know who Angela is. If you all can see this passion in her eyes, I mean, this is not something that she's doing for a monetary reason or anything like that. This woman here is passionate about teaching people, about helping people, and about educating people on anything that she feels is going to help them. Now, she probably doesn't know everything, but the things that she knows, she's always willing to help. So if you all think this is not real, this is really her. So, all right, that's all I got to say about that. Back to insurance.
It is.
So,
yes, tell me about insurance.
So insurance, the good thing about business policies, which is what you want me to focus on, I'm assuming, correct? Business policies?
Let's talk about the insurance on business policies. Why do they need it?
So the good thing about small business policies is, believe it or not, they're relatively inexpensive. And it's typically because there's not a whole lot to cover for the majority of startup businesses. Majority, I won't even say majority, but quite a few of them. If someone's opening up a business that has a lot of contents, maybe some type of warehousing where they have a lot of things to insure, or they own the building and it's a big building that houses a lot of square footage, that could send prices up. But typically someone that's opening up a beauty salon, a website builder, or things like that, those are relatively inexpensive, and you'd be surprised at how affordable it is, which is when you really need it to be affordable, because startup costs are, when you're starting up, it seems like everybody's asking for money, from licenses to equipment to us insurance people. So it's relatively inexpensive. It's just a matter of making sure you get the right coverages, because there's what's called and I won't confuse or bore people with insurance jargon, but there are things called BOPs, which are business owner policies. Those are just policies that have a bunch of coverages built into it. And sometimes it's more than you need as a startup. So it really helps to have a good agent that can actually put together a package specifically for you and then scale it as you grow. So the most important thing is I think that some people drop the ball on is they think, well, I'll be careful for now and I'll get the insurance when I can afford it. And I strongly suggest, before you start your business, get yourself a quote, write it into the heart list of expenses that are must-haves, along with the equipment that you need, along with everything that you need to operate. Make it insurance, because you never know when it's going to happen, and it always seems like it happens when you're not ready or when you're not prepared. So one of the most basic types of insurance that everybody typically has. Did you have a question for me?
No, go ahead.
Okay. One of the most basic insurance. What was that?
I'm intrigued by insurance.
Yeah, I know. So I feel like the Progressive commercial where the insurance people are talking to each other and Flo's listening and likes to hear it. So anyway, general liability is probably the most common one that you'll hear about, because pretty much every business is going to use general liability. General liability is a liability policy that covers you for things that you may be held liable for, which is why it's called liability. General is because it's different types of liability, but liability can get specific. The coverages can get specific. But liability could be someone comes into your business and they slip and fall. Freshly mopped floor, they slip and fall, they sue you. You're liable for that because they came in there to do business with you. So you're liable. That's the liability part of it. Liability could also be you're renting someone's place and you start a fire. You're liable for certain damages. There's liability that pays for fire damages, fire legal liability. So there's there's a lot of different types of liability, and I won't try to teach anyone how to be an insurance agent through this webinar. So the gist of it is liability is more so what you may be held liable for, pretty much from a lawsuit standpoint is a general way to think about it. It's not always a lawsuit, but it's typically something that someone can hold you responsible for. That's pretty much general liability. The second most common one that I think you'll hear about is property insurance. Now, property insurance can be personal property or building property. So if you're someone who might be renting a unit and you have a beauty salon, your personal property will be your chairs, your stations, your product as far as what you put in people's hair, the chemicals and things of that nature. Same with a barbershop, clippers and things of that nature. That's your personal property. You don't own the building, so you don't have to worry about insuring the building. If you own the building, then you're going to have property, building property, which a lot of times they call dwelling property. I don't want to mix you up or get you caught up into the jargon. Let your insurance agent worry about the different terms. But what you want to know is you want to insure what's yours. Often people, I'll have someone call to say, I need to get insurance. I want to insure my personal property. And I'll say, okay, how much do you want to cover it for? They'll say, oh, I think I only have $5,000 worth of things. I'll say, okay, do you own the unit? No, I don't. I'm renting. Okay. If you could pick up your unit and shake everything out, will all that be yours? Yes, everything will be mine. Will 5,000 cover all that? Oh, I didn't think about it that way. Because they're typically thinking about their laptop or their monitors or their copier, the expensive things that makes it an office. But they're not thinking about the desk. They're not thinking about the the chairs that for the customers. They're not thinking about those things because it feels like part of the office, but they're thinking about their expensive big ticket items that break down. So again, it's a lot of times it takes someone to realize those things, because you wouldn't think about these things by yourself.
I think that's really good, Billy. Can I ask you a question? Because you brought up something that created a thought for me when we talked about hair salons, okay? And any other business, really, for that matter. So what happens, I've seen a lot of people open up businesses, especially hair salons, where they put a lot of money into the decor. Maybe new flooring. Maybe they redid the bathroom. They did a lot of things that are permanent to this building. So when they turn this building upside down, if they could, it won't fall out. But they spent $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in upgrading the salon. And then there's a claim. God forbid there's a fire. It all burns down. There's $50,000 out the gate, in addition to all the stuff that was in there. So let's say they just had that property insured. Is there a way to make sure that $50,000 investment that stays in the building when they leave, that it's covered too?
Absolutely. What you're referring to is a good example is sometimes people will rent out a newly constructed place that has offices, and there's nothing in there but the studs, wooden studs or metal studs, and you actually go in and put in a drywall. And that's not what you were saying, but this is an example. But if you go into a place where the drywall is already there, you paint it, you put in some nicer cabinets that are built into the place, things like that. That's called betterment and improvements. And you want to make sure that you have adequate coverage for that too. A lot of times it's built into some of the policies, but when they give you these cookie cutter policies some of the time, it may or may not be in there. And it's something that, again, which is a good point that you asked, Angela, people don't think about asking about that. So betterment and improvements is a coverage that you want to make sure is in your policy. If anyone were ever to take a look at this video or have any questions on what they should look at, this is a good question for the agent, because what happens is there's a small interview process when you talk to your agent about what type of business you're opening. And these are the questions that we ask. And that's a great one right there is will you be improving the unit at all? Sometimes people build out, there's a unit that becomes available next to them. They knock the wall in the middle down, open it up, and they make it a larger space. But when they do that, they improve it by adding different flooring in there, things of that nature. Betterment improvements is something that you want to have, because if the place were to catch fire, in certain situations, again, without making it too complicated, when the place is rebuilt, it's rebuilt like it was from the beginning, not how it was
Right.
after you finished. So your betterment
Right.
improvements will allow you the money to put back the nicer cabinets, or put back the nicer flooring, or the plush carpeting, or whatever it was that you had in there. So that's a great question.
You know what? Now you just made me think of another question.
This is how it works in the
here
office.
it is. So here it is. You have this business, and you add this additional space. You put, you open this wall up, and you have this additional space. And so now, it's actually a two-part question. One of the most common things I see is that people want to cut costs all the time. And I understand your reasoning for want to cut costs. So you get someone to come in and do your improvements for you, okay? They're not necessarily licensed. There's somebody that just does some good work, you think, or somebody that gave you a great deal. And then I've heard where this happens, where there's a claim now because that person did something wrong, and now there's a fire. Now, it happened in your unit, but you hired what you thought was a contractor. His stuff started this fire. So my first question is, what do I need to do as a business owner to protect my own insurance? And then the second thing is, how will I know that I have, because there's a lot I can do online now. I can do a lot of stuff online. I can buy groceries online. I can buy dinner online. I can buy insurance online. And I went and got a general liability policy because that's all I need. How can I know that I have the right coverages without spending an arm and a leg? How do I know if I ain't getting got? How do I know that?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, whenever you are hiring, and you are giving me some good things to talk about, whenever you are hiring a contractor, you always want to ask for a certificate of liability. What that is that shows that that contractor has insurance, and what you have them do is they list you as an additional insured on their policy. So they come into ABC Walls Incorporated comes in to put in new drywall or nice painting or wallpaper, what have you. They come in and somehow they start a small fire, or they're hammering and they knock a hole in the wall and it goes through to the other tenant's wall on the other side, or whatever may happen. Well, rather than you use your insurance, you are listed on their policy as an additional insured. So you actually get to file a claim against their insurance. Their insurance will pay for all that damage that they did, and you won't even have to touch your insurance. So that's a very good point to bring to a lot of people's attention, because people, like you said, are looking for a deal, and they'll have a handyman come in and put stuff up. Well, the problem with the handyman is if you have any kind of issue, they put up a nice pretty wall for you, or hang some nice pictures for you, or mount your TV, your flat screen TVs on the wall, and it just falls off the wall and causes damage to the wall and hits the ground. That handyman may not be easy to find at that point, because it doesn't behoove him to come out and make it right. He charged you a little bit, and he's not going to come back, and make it right. Typically. And I'm not speaking for all handymen. Some handymen are very good, but if you get a legitimate contractor that has insurance, you have nothing to worry about. You hold on to that certificate of insurance, and anything should happen, you can contact his insurance directly. Second part of the question, what was that again? You get insurance.
The other part of the question is, how do I know that I'm getting a person or the right company to represent me, to give me the right policy? Because, I can buy everything online, and I see all of these commercials on TV. And then I hear about all these other companies. I don't see their commercials. I don't see their stuff. How would I know what's the right thing to do?
Well, the best thing to do is talk to an independent broker like myself, because I have an inside understanding of all the insurance carriers the ones that are tops, the ones that have been around the longest, the ones that pay. And I'm not just plugging for myself, even if you don't do business with me, just find yourself a very good insurance, an independent agent, because they typically should know these type of things. I'll give you a good example. Some of the companies I represent, Nationwide, Liberty Mutual, Allstate, Progressive, all those big names, you see all those commercials all over TV. So if you want a big name that you see on TV so you can feel good about it, I got that for you. But actually, one of my favorite carriers that I have is a company called Erie Insurance. They don't advertise at all. They go through the independent broker chain and we market for them. And they've been around, I think, about 95 years. They're tops in the class. They're only in, I think, about 12 or 13 states, but they're nationally known. That's how good they are. Their market penetration is rising, things like that. No one knows that stuff because who's going to sit and do that kind of research? So if you talk to a broker, to an independent agent like myself, I can tell you these things. I can tell you about these companies that make sense. I don't have any carriers. I have people that come in my office from different carriers that want me to sell their product. And their assets aren't in order. They're not ranked by AM Best to be financially sound, and I won't do business with them. Because if you get insurance from me and I give you this rock bottom price, you go, oh my God, that price is incredible. But I put you with some insurance company, some fly-by-night carrier. Well, when it comes time for you to pay a claim, for you to file a claim, and they him and haw, they don't pay you, or they, a bunch of red tape, make things difficult, you're not going to go after the insurance company. You're coming after me. And like you alluded to earlier, I've been here 20 years, so I don't have nowhere to hide. I've been around for a little while, so I don't want anybody coming after me. So my goal is to make sure that if I place you with a good carrier at a good rate, that they're going to take care of you when you need them. The worst thing you want to do is pay insurance for 2, 3, 4, 10 years, and then decide to use them, and then they got 100, things for you to do to get the claim file. So the answer to your question would be, I hope I didn't make that too long, but the answer to that question, I believe, if I answered it correctly, would be to talk to an agent, an independent agent, and let them figure out what's best for your needs.
So, you said something that made me recall something I heard in a class last week. And it's so true. Sure, people want the better price. They think they should shop on price. But fortunately for the insurance companies, claims are not settled based on price. They're settled based on coverage. And sometimes when you're trying to buy by price, you negate some of the important coverages. And when you don't have a skilled person in the insurance industry, they may not even know the important coverages and what other companies offer, and you end up getting the short end of the stick at claims time. Because truth be told, that's the only time insurance matters, is at claims time. No other time does it matter. You could care less, but when it's that break in case of emergency time, you want to make sure that you have what you need. So thank you for saying that. Yeah. So I thought of something else. I just love having conversation about insurance because I think it takes it takes all the hardness out, all the complication out. So I'm thinking, okay, you talked about general liability. You talked about property damage. Now, here's the beast in the industry. One of the beasts in the industry, and most business owners hate it, is that workers' compensation. That's the beast. So can you kind of tell people what workers' comp is, and then do they really need to have it?
Okay, so let me give you the skinny on it, because most people don't understand, most business owners don't understand workers' comp. First of all, to tell you what it is workers' comp is a coverage that covers the employees of the company. It can cover the owners if they elect to be included. And again, without making it too technical, it does depend on whether you're an LLC or an incorporation, on how that part works. But you can include yourself or exclude yourself. But it's designed that if someone is working at your business or working for your business during the time of the injury or the accident, the workman's comp will pay for their medical bills, some of their salary, and it could even pay for a funeral if they, should lose their life. But it's designed to cover the employees for injuries. Now, what the business owner needs to know is that A, it is mandatory in Indiana, but B, it's based off of the premium, the cost of it. The cost is based off of payroll. So it's all determined by how much payroll you have, because that kind of lets them know how much risk you have. So if you have, the number of employees are important too. That does play a role, but the number one thing is payroll, and payroll per what they're doing. They call it a class. So if you have I'm just going to say a beauty salon, just for because it seems to be an easy example. If you had a beautician, that's a certain class of what she does. If you have someone that is doing the administrative, like the payroll, things like that, that's a completely different class, because there's two different risks there. The person that's doing payroll has very, very, very low risk. They can even do the payroll from home remotely. Whereas the person that is the beautician has to come in, has to stand up all day, has to actually work with the person. So there's a little bit more risk there. It's still not a high risk class, but there's still a little bit more risk. And the higher the risk, for example, a roofer has high risk. Why? Because he's obviously a story to 2 stories to 3 stories up in the air and could fall. So the higher the risk, the higher the cost. The lower the risk, the lower the cost. So without making that too complicated and boring, because like I said, no one really wants to talk insurance if it's boring. It's based off of payroll and how many people. They determined that if you've got $1 million in payroll, you got a lot of stuff going on. They've determined if you got 24,000, if you have 24,000 payroll, you got a little less going on. So that's why payroll kind of determines that. But unfortunately, the last thing I'll leave you with, and I'm not saying to scare anyone, unfortunately, workman's comp, especially in Illinois, because I know people watching here are in Illinois and Indiana. In Illinois, it's a bit higher, and partially because of workers' comp fraud, a lot of people who want to get paid and not go to work and kind of mess it up. That's kind of driven.
You think people do that?
Yeah, believe it or not, there's some people out here who'd rather not work but still collect the check. I know, I can't.
Wow. Okay.
And they kind of mess it up for other people. But again, whatever you do, don't be scared of the insurance. At least get the quotes and figure out a plan. I mean, that's the important part. Figure out a plan, because it could be, I did a couple of stores in a mall. Well, this was before COVID. And they were very concerned because they thought they weren't going to be able to afford it. And they were extremely happy when I showed them the cost. It's not that bad. I even went over what it may cost as they add on people. And I actually worked with one and explained to them, without trying to be their business, because I know you have someone that helps with business finances, but without trying to do that for them, I kind of helped them understand what kind of income they probably need to see before they go to the next level, just because we can kind of estimate the cost. And man, that solved everything for her. She thought that made everything very, very doable, because there's a plan. So I really want to explain to new business owners, or even current business owners, don't be afraid to get the quotes and get insured correctly. There's so many people. So Angela, the one thing I can tell you that I've run into the most over 20 years is people either coming to me from another carrier with the wrong coverages. And it could be because maybe the agent didn't know it well. I'm not rolling any agents under the bus. But it also could be sometimes the customer won't give them all the information, because the word on the street is your rate can get cheaper if you do it this way or that way. And what I'm trying with one thing I want to convey more than anything, I wish anyone that watches this can take away, this is the number one takeaway. If you're going to get insured, get it covered correctly. Don't cut corners because of cost. There are certain things you can do that can bring the cost down temporarily. For example, higher deductibles, things of that nature. You'd rather have, here's what I told someone. You're going to like this, Angie. This is going to be an auto example, because most people have auto insurance. So I had a person who said, you know, it was like a 2018 vehicle. And they said, my insurance is just too high and I do want the car, so I'm going to take liability on it. I said, well, you know what? Rather than do that, I said, let me give you a quote. I gave him a quote with a $2,500 deductible. For those that don't know what a deductible is, that means the insurance company pays everything over that amount. So anything under that amount you cover, the insurance kicks in right after that. Doesn't go in that order, but that's the easy way to remember it. So I told the person, take a $2,500 deductible. And this person said to me, well, you mean if I have an accident, I got to pay $2,500 of it? That's too much. I said, okay, well, if you go with liability, you're paying 100% of the, yeah. So if this $40,000 car is in an accident and you have $20,000 worth of damage, you're going to pay $20,000, or you can just try to come up with $2,500. You know what she did, right? So it takes someone to put things in layman's terms sometimes for you to just figure things out that way. But there's plans that you can come up with to make things a little bit better temporarily. Then when you get on your feet or the business picks up and you get, you know, more money coming in, then you go back and say, hey, you know what? We're doing a little bit better now. Bring that deductible down. That's been bothering for a long time. I'm doing better now. Bring that deductible down, or whatever it is that we did to help for the time being. But figure out what it is first. The number one takeaway from this whole video is get yourself insured correctly. And if it's too much, figure out how to bring it down without sacrificing coverages. You take a little bit more of the risk by raising your deductible. You keep all your coverages. And if something should happen, you get to walk away and say, insurance company, take care of that for me. Call me when it's done.
Right. I agree. And, you know, I thought about some other things when you were talking. And because you brought up beauty salons, you know, it's just in my mind now, but it applies to so many other people. But this one is really kind of specific to that industry or something similar to it. So now, here's something I remember happening often. So let's say you have a salon owner. They need coverage. And they have 8 stylists in their shop. And you say, hey, do your stylists have their own coverage? Yeah, they're supposed to have their own. Do you have proof of that? Are you listed as additional insured? No, I don't need that. You know, they just pay me booth rent. But a stylist in your salon puts chemicals on someone's head. You didn't know they were diabetic. You didn't ask if they were diabetic. They have an injury and they don't heal. Who's responsible for that, Billy? What happens? What should a shop owner do?
Again, and this is why I think I'm going to start every response off with, this is why you should make sure you have yourself a good insurance agent. And it's because these are, again, she's tapping on a lot of questions that people have that they don't think about. And in this particular case, every stylist or barber, if you own a barbershop, every stylist or barber should have their own liability insurance. For the reason that she partially touched on, which is if you have a beautician with everybody having all these wild color hairs and these crazy hairstyles these days, it takes chemicals to make these things happen. And like she said, if someone has a reaction to it, someone's hair falls out the next day because it just didn't work well or take to their body chemistry or whatever the case may be, someone used too much of a particular product than they were supposed to, and a person's head is actually burnt, which has happened. I'm sure you guys have probably seen that kind of stuff on YouTube. Well, when that happens, guess who they're going to sue? The owner. Yep. That's who's going to wind up getting it. So what you do as the owner is you make sure that they all have their own liability. You cannot, let me rephrase that. You should not count on them to say, I'll get my own coverage, because you'll never know if they buy it and let it lapse or what have you. Now, here's the part that's really funny, or that no one really believes when I tell them, let me just give you a quote on adding them on. They say, okay, tell me how much it is. Guess how much it breaks down to per stylist? Approximately about somewhere between $3 and $7.
You mean to tell me
per month
that if I had 8 more stylists in there, I can pay an additional $50 a month, $50, $60 a month to add them on, and they can pay it to me out of their booth rent? Is that
That's
what
what I
you're
was going
telling
to
me?
say. And I always tell them just add it to the booth rent when they start, when they come to get the booth, when you set them up, when you sign the paperwork, whatever, however you set up your booth rent, you throw in the extra $5 or what have you for their insurance. And they're paying for their own insurance, but you get to make sure that they're insured. And guess how much coverage they're typically insured up to? $1 million.
$1 million. So you mean to tell me I own a salon, and for a very small cost, $50 a month, $60 a month, I can make sure that I'm protecting myself from that stylist not protecting themselves. Because I understand that people come after the person that they think have the deeper pockets.
That's correct.
And the owner has the appearance, even if you don't, you have the appearance of having deeper pockets, and you're setting yourself up in a position to have someone to come after you. And if you don't have the right coverages, everything you've worked for and your reputation and your license are now at risk.
That's correct.
And a person like you can fix that for me.
I can fix that for you for far less than you would think.
Wow. I think that's pretty amazing, buddy.
Well, that's what happens when you look to get everything covered correctly. You know, I have a lot of people that will say, I just need liability, because they're thinking, don't try to sell me. And I don't try to sell people on anything. This is going to sound cocky, but what I want you to understand is the extra $5 doesn't make me any money. What it does is it protects my client. And that's what's more important to me. So if you don't take the extra $5 a month for your stylist, that's not going to, I won't know that financial. That's not going to help me. Yeah, you say, well, if you do it times 100 people, yeah, I guess so. But that's, you know how long I'll starve if I wait for 100 people to take out extra $5? My goal is to get you insured and get you insured correctly. So people don't want to be sold. Just give me liability, and that's all I need. Don't worry about the rest. How about if you just let me present you what cover you correctly, the best, and if you don't like it, let's work our way backwards. Because if I give you the quote, it doesn't mean you have to write a check for that. It just means now you understand what it takes to insure yourself correctly and take care of this business that you're getting ready to work hard to try to build, and not let someone. We're in a litigious society. If someone slips and falls in there, they're going to name you. They're going to name the beauticians. They're going to name the dog. They're going to name the person sweeping the floors. They're going to name the person out front shoveling the snow. They name everybody in a lawsuit, because wherever it sticks, that's what they want. So why let someone come along and take something from you that you worked hard and they did nothing? So
I agree. Thank you for that. So, okay, I feel bad because I know a lot of hairstylists, and I feel bad because they may be thinking we're beating up on them. So I'm going to move away.
Let's change, because I have a lot insured too, and I don't want them to think that if you're watching this, I'm not talking about you. I love my clients. They're the greatest.
That's right. But now,
let's talk about barbers. No, just joking.
Here's something I do want to talk about, because there are a lot of things that change over time. Regulations change. And like you just mentioned, it's a litigious society. People sue for every reason they can now. And because of that, coverages change. So a couple of the big ones that are happening now, the EPLI, the Employment Practice Liability Insurance, and then we have the cyber liability. So now I really kind of want to hit on that EPLI, because let's say, so see, that can happen anywhere. You work in an office and you got the FedEx guy that comes in all the time, or the Amazon person, and the Amazon person may be inappropriate, or you may be inappropriate, or one of your staff people may be inappropriate with the Amazon or FedEx guy or girl. So let's talk about that. So there seems to be so much sexual harassment going on. So talk to me about that coverage, because it's my understanding that it helps you with that.
Well, and see, so back in the day, and I'm not going to date myself or you.
What day?
But back in the day, it used to be actually cute and clever, like to flirt with the UPS guy or the delivery, girl or whoever, because it was fun. When you're working a front desk somewhere, they come in their shorts or what have you, and you want to say, hey, how you doing? Because it brightens up your day. It's fun. But in today's litigious society, you're going to make someone feel the wrong way these days. And sometimes people do take it too far. A lot of times, it's just not as innocent as it used to be, is my point. And you have to be careful about that these days, because what will happen is your regular driver, so to speak, in your example, doesn't come the next day. And you wonder what happened. Where is the regular delivery person or what have you? And they're not coming. You know why? Because they filed a lawsuit against the business because they feel uncomfortable now. Because every time they come in, you tell them how cute he looks in his shorts. He doesn't like that, or she doesn't like that, or that you tell them, wow, you've got a nice shape. I'd like to see you every day. Now she's uncomfortable. You thought you were giving a compliment, or maybe sometimes people go too far because sometimes people don't think that there's anything wrong with what they're saying. But you never know how another person feels these days. So there is a coverage that helps to cover you if you are being sued for inappropriate behavior to another person. And it can happen internally too. It could be you talking to another coworker at your job. It could be you talking to the secretary talking to the treasurer. And I'm just making up, positions.
Right.
But wherever it is that you're working, and I got to get up for these beauticians. I'm using that because everybody knows a barber and a beautician because everybody goes there, and it's just the easiest. It's not that they're the most difficult, but wherever you are, if you're working at let's use something else. Let's use a law firm. If you're working at a law firm and one attorney talking to the other attorney, and it just gets too flirty, and one sues the other. The owner of the business of the law firm, needs EPLI to make sure that it needs that coverage to make sure that they don't file a case, if they should file a case rather against the employer, that there's coverage to take care of that. And it will cover them to go to court and to have attorneys take on the case for them.
It's funny because I've heard that there are more lawsuits being filed now for EPL or sexual harassment and employment practice, be it for harassment or wrongful termination or whatever. More claims are being filed against that coverage on a policy than claims for people having house fires. House fires used to be the leading thing of claims, one of the larger claims, but now it's kind of pivoted to this. And it's funny because people automatically assume that you have to have a gross error. You may have just simply said, you know what, that's a nice dress. Or, I really like your hair that way. And that person feels offended, and now, next thing you know, you're in court. And even if they don't win, there are only a few companies that I know of. You got to pay the legal fees. There are some companies that will help you with the legal fees, not many. But by the time you get done being stressed out, you're thinking about your reputation, you're thinking about your business, and now you're concerned about who do you hire next, because how are you going to make sure that this doesn't happen again? By the time you go through all of that stress, even if they don't win the lawsuit, you've spent a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of money fighting that they don't win. And a lot of people would say, well, now you can countersue them. Well, there we go with time again, and there we go with money again, and there we go with all this energy again. So the point is, as you stated, you want to have the right agent that can sit down and have that conversation with you out the gate to make sure you have the right things in place so that you can have the right things at the right time. And so we also talked a little bit, I brought up cyber liability.
Let me mention this real quick. Let me mention this. Yes. You have to, because people have to keep in mind, there's kind of a misnomer that if you go to court in a case like this and you win, like you get your money back. And that's not how it works. So you're right. If you go to countersue, there's still more money that has to be spent for attorneys to do this. The attorney fees can really pile up quickly. And I just want to mention that because I've had someone ask me that before, and they actually said, well, as long as you don't lose, you're okay. And I'm thinking, it's not, the loser's not the one that pays for everything, necessarily. Now, sometimes a good attorney can, sue them for attorney
Right.
fees, but that's a whole nother subject. But the point is that you have to get an attorney to take care of that. So, okay.
And it's usually reimbursed because you're paying up front.
Yeah, exactly.
So
You still have to
yes,
pay up front. So in order to get to court, you have to have some money to get there.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Very good. Very good. So now let's talk about cyber liability or data breach. One of the biggest things I remember that happened some years back, it happened at Joel Osteen's church. I remember reading or hearing something about someone stole some checks, some credit card information, or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I love Joel Osteen, so this is nothing bad about him. But my point is, this can happen in any business. Criminals are certainly more sophisticated today than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 2 years ago. Technology allows people to do a lot, and before you know it, it has happened to you. So can we talk a little bit about cyber liability and data breach? What is it? Why do I need this coverage?
So cyber liability data breach is exactly what you just mentioned, and in detail, it is. It could be your website gets hacked, and people they take your social security numbers, they take passwords, bank account numbers, things of that nature. So you have a business and you're taking online payments, and people make payments online, and next day they find out that there's been a bunch of charges that were made to their account that that they obviously didn't make. Well, they don't necessarily know where it comes from, but the problem comes in when it happens to 10 or 11 other people, and all of them have one thing in common. They made a payment on your website. So that's what cyber liability is, or data breach, because it's when someone breaches your data. They take the data from your website, from some type of a hosted account that you have. It could even be someone in your office. People don't use disks anymore, but if they're able to put a what do you call it, the USB drive in there and pull information off of your computer, pull credit cards, pull driver's license, pull socials. If they're able to do that, they're breaching your data, and they can sell that on the black market, and you have big problems at that point. Cyber liability will cover you for things like that, and it's relatively inexpensive until you get into, corporate style, giant corporation style. But it's an inexpensive coverage that nobody really thinks about, because most small business haven't seen it happen to anyone near them. But again, this is part of my spiel to get insured correctly from the beginning, because you can't get it after it happens, and you can't get it while it's happening. It's kind of like, I don't need insurance, and someone calls you and says your house is on fire. You can't say, you know what, I'll take that policy real quick.
It's sort of like the hurricane happening outside, and you run outside with nails and some plywood, and you're trying to board it up. Not going to happen.
Well, actually, that's a great example, because when if they tell you a tornado is coming, there's a tornado warning in your area, you can't call and get insurance at that point. You cannot. There's moratoriums that they throw on to prevent any new policies from coming through, because the idea is not for you to pay me $100 and I build you a new house. So
that is an uneven exchange for sure.
Absolutely. The definition for insurance is realistically to put you back the way you were before the incident happened. So not to pay $100 and get a brand new house. Because if it were that easy, there'd be no more insurance companies. But cyber liability is something that people don't think about until it happens to them, because it's not happening enough on a smaller scale, but it's inexpensive enough that you can put it into your policy. The idea about insurance is to pad this little piece of paper with so many coverages that whenever something happens, you make a phone call and say, hey, insurance company, we got a problem. I'm gonna need you to handle it because this is what I paid you for. Let me know how it turns out. Thank you very much. Bye. Obviously, it's not going to be that cold, but that's the way you want to feel about it. You want to feel like, I'm not going to get damaged financially. I'm not going to be put out of business. I'm not going to spend sleepless nights wondering what's going to happen because I got insured correctly for maybe a couple dollars more, or maybe even not what you thought it was going to be. But that's my big takeaway, is find out how to insure yourself correctly from the beginning, and then work your way from there. Come up with a plan to afford that package. And if you really, really, really can't afford it, know what's missing so you can add that on as soon as you can afford it. There's plans that you can have as long as you talk to a good agent.
Okay. So there are two other things I want to make sure we talk about, because we got about 20 minutes left, but there are two things I want to make sure we talk about, because this seems to be very common now. Uber, Grubhub, let me put a magnet on my car, own a business, all of that kind of stuff. And then the other thing is there's some kind of claim, some kind of loss, and your business is shut down because of a covered peril. So let's say, God forbid, I remember there was a hair salon. We're back on the hair salon. There was a hair salon near my office before.
Don't hate us.
And one of the stylists there left a candle burning.
Mm.
Now, that's definitely the bad place to do it, because there are chemicals in a hair salon, and it burned. Now, all of these people that work there, nobody can go to work. The salon, and who's going to pay booth rent for a place that they can't rent? The salon owner is now missing out on income. They can't feed their family anymore. So can you talk about if there's coverage for that, and then talk about the Uber, Grubhub, I put a magnet on my car kind of thing. I'm driving this personal vehicle for business now.
So the first one is called business interruption. And you want to make sure you have that on your policy, because in a situation like you just mentioned, if something happens that stops your business from running, one of the main things that you would, in this case again with the beauty salon, I'm at least switch it to a barbershop, that just to change it a little bit.
Okay.
Look at the barbers a little bit. The barbers can't come to work, but the barbers need to work. So what are they going to do? Maybe find a new barbershop to work at. And they're not going to go there temporarily until you get on your feet. Typically, they're going to make a new home someplace, and you're going to have to look for new barbers to, all over again once everything's back on its your business back on its feet. So business interruption can do a couple of things. It can pay you for the lost monies that you will be getting from the barber booth rent. It could also pay the barbers for lost money that they would be making. It could pay for it could pay you up to 6 months. There's different coverages, different amount of coverage. Some of them go for a certain dollar amount, up to a certain dollar amount. Some will go to a certain length of time. But it can pay you for a certain length of time while repairs are being made. That way you hold on to your employees, whatever type of business it is. You hold on to your customers, because you can let your customers know we're rebuilding. We'll be back, shortly. And it puts you back on your feet a lot faster by helping you retain your employees and not missing your finances, so you continue to pay your mortgage or your rent, for your unit yourself.
Right, because those expenses are still expected. Just because you have a claim doesn't mean that the landlord or the mortgage company, whomever, is not expecting their payment. And then what happens if, let's say, your fire caused a fire next door and that person's business is burning up too?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
now you got an issue.
Yeah, and the flip side is what you're really concerned about is that next door, theirs burned down and you're put out. So now what did you do? You didn't even cause a fire. So it wasn't even your fault. So that's an important coverage to have, because again, it's something that you wouldn't think about to ask your insurance agent. And again, it's something that you wouldn't think about when you say, hey, I just need a quick liability quote, because you want to just have a small policy. And again, it's not expensive. It's not expensive. A lot of times these policies are costing anywhere between, and don't quote me on this because I have no idea what your situation is, but for small shops and things like that, because I've insured tons of beauty and barber salons, and they average anywhere between $600 to $1,500, just depending on whether they own the building, whether they have a lot of booths, a lot of chairs, or whether it's a salon that does nails also, or does does mani-pedis, things of that nature. Just depends on how far the services go, but they're not expensive. You're talking about sometimes $100 a month.
Yeah.
And I can throw almost every coverage we talked about in there for that. I mean, again, it depends. It's case by case, but I just want to throw a number out there to give you an idea that it's not that expensive. Now, if $100 a month is expensive, then maybe you can go with a higher deductible and bring it down, because I'm not going to tell everyone they can afford $100 a month when they first start.
Right.
We can get it down to 75 or something like that, maybe. But we can look at it. That's the point that I'm making. I'm going to keep bringing home the point that I want people to get their coverages correct and figure it out from there.
Okay. And so let's talk about the magnet on the car. Oh, yes, Uber. My magnet on my car.
Uber Eats. Okay.
Grubhub.
Yeah. So that's one that I'm really kind of passionate about, because it's a very minimal charge. Because when you are driving for Uber, Lyft, Grubhub, when you're driving for them, they have insurance that covers you when you're on the clock, I like to call it. So you're driving around in your car, just driving down the street, you're using your insurance. You're driving for Uber. You click the button to say that you'll accept the passenger. You're now on Uber's insurance. You have an accident while you're going to get the passenger, while you're transporting the passenger, or dropping off the passenger. Uber pays for any incidents that happen during that time. You click that you're off of Uber now, you're back on your own insurance. So it's a minimal charge. You do have to let me be clear, you have to let your carrier know that you're driving for Uber, Uber Eats, Lyft, you're doing what any of those type of livery, so to speak, or delivery services. But it's not that much more. I mean, it really, really is a minimal charge. And it's typically because those carriers are really absorbing the cost while you're on the clock for their service. But the biggest problem is people aren't telling their agents that they're doing it. And you're going to find out that you're going to have much bigger problems if something were to happen. Here's what happens. People have an accident or driving to my office to make a payment with the little Lyft thing in the windshield. And I look out there and go, oh, you're driving for Lyft? Yeah, I love it. Like, yeah, we don't have you covered for that. Oh, yeah, well, I don't do it that much. It's not about that. It's about letting us know. And so what happened is I said, let me just tell you how much it is. And I think their rate went up. I don't want to give a number because everybody's going to try to hold their agents to that number. I heard it's only this much more, but it went up just a little bit. And they were like, oh, I wish I'd have known this from the beginning. And they laughed because they heard themselves saying, I knew I should have told you this, but I didn't. And my point is, get covered correctly. Don't pay insurance and give the insurance company a reason to say you're on your own. Don't have an accident and you get hurt or you hurt someone, God forbid, kill someone, and your insurance agent gets to, your insurance company gets to say, oh, guess what? You didn't tell us about this. It's like you don't have any insurance. Don't give them the opportunity to do that. You've just been paying a little bit less than you should have. Pay that little bit more, get insured correctly, and have no worries. Sleep good.
Right. Thank you for that. I just want to, because we're just about out of time, but I want to kind of recap some things we've talked about, because I think that we brought up
one more thing.
Yes.
One more thing. Commercial auto, if you have a business, even if you don't have auto insured on your business, there's a coverage called hired and non-owned that I like to mention. Check on that. For example, sticking with the barbershop, you tell somebody in the barbershop, hey, you know what? I'm paying for lunch today. Run and get us a bucket of rib tips or some shrimp or whatever it is for lunch, and it's on me. Go get it, bring it back. He or she goes out, they have an accident. The business owner that sent them on that errand is actually the one that's responsible for that accident. Believe it or not, this is probably very shocking to a lot of people that are listening to this, but believe it or not, the business owner is realistically on the hook. A lot of times they don't know it, and the business owner never has to pay, and the person in the car never even knows that they could have gone after the business owner. But
Right.
hired and non-owned is the name of the coverage. That's an additional coverage that doesn't typically come on anything that doesn't
Right.
have commercial auto built into it. That's the coverage you like to have added on. Again, it's not very expensive at all. I want to mention that because
Right.
no one really knows about that. I've been finding myself telling a lot of people, even friends that aren't insured with me that I know that have businesses, I tell them make sure it's on their policy. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Yes. I'm glad you did, because I think that's a big deal, because oftentimes there's a runner in the office that goes to pick up lunch for everyone, and it may be their lunch hour. They may not even be on the clock, but they're running an errand for the business.
Yeah.
And because of that,
supplies.
a lot of people don't know that when you're a business owner, you're taking on a lot of risk, some of it known and unknown. You just don't know. But that's why you need to make sure you have certain things in place, because the insurance agent deals with this every day, and they know the coverages that are in place. Being in the insurance industry for me, 31 years, and Billy for over 20 years, I bet we can tell you some stories that would knock you out. And these are the stories we hear every day. Yeah, people think our jobs are probably so boring. They have no idea the stories we hear every day, and it's never the same story. It's something different every day. So one of the things that Billy said was the number one takeaway was to make sure you get the right agent that can give you the right coverage. And I want to really, really hone in on that, because one, just because you see something on television or you know this agent and you've had them for a very, very long time, doesn't mean that they really know everything they need to know or can offer you everything that you need to have. It is important that you really, really, really have a great relationship with that agent so you can talk, you can freely discuss, no holds barred, because you have too much to lose. And the insurance agent has a lot to lose if they have the coverages available and they don't offer it. So we have a responsibility, being people that hold licenses. You can call it almost like a malpractice when we don't do what the state requires us to do. So make sure that you pay attention to what Billy said. You want to get an educated agent, a trusted insurance advisor who operates with different companies that can offer you the coverages that you need to have. That's number one. I want to kind of recap just a couple of things we talked about. We talked about general liability and property insurance. General liability is just what he said. It's pretty general, but it protects you against the things that you may be liable against. And then the property damage, the things that your personal property or the investment that you put into the physical business itself. We talked about the workers' comp. It is mandatory in the state of Indiana. I believe it's mandatory in Illinois. If you do not have this coverage and there is a claim, a worker is injured or whatever it is, there's a claim and you don't have it, there is a fine that you must pay in addition to paying the claim. I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but I believe the fine is a minimum of $10,000.
I'm not sure either.
So you want to make sure you have, you want to make sure you have that workers' comp. The EPLI, the Employment Practice Liability.
Oh, Angela, one quick question, one quick thing. For the workers' comp, if you are a sole proprietor with no employees in Indiana, you can file for an exemption with the state. There's a form that you just fill out. You can get it online at indiana.gov, whatever the Indiana website is, and you can file for an exemption. And they will hold you. They will give you an exemption where you don't have to have work comp because you don't have employees, and it's just yourself, because you don't have to have workers' comp only for yourself. So that's something that a lot of employers don't know about. So like I've got a contractor who's a painter, and they're saying, we need you to have general liability and workers' comp. And he's like, well, I don't have any employees yet. He doesn't have to get workers' comp. He can file a form. Just want to mention that.
Okay. Now, keep in mind, Billy said that if you don't have to have it, you must sign a form. Do not just say, I ain't got to get it because I don't have any employees. No, you still have to get it. There are ways that people find out when you have or when you don't have workers' comp, and the fines and the penalties are too stiff, it's not worth putting yourself at risk for that. The EPLI
Everybody
coverage
wants your money, business people. Everybody wants your money.
yes,
If they can get it.
everybody wants you
Protect
because you
yourself.
got deeper pockets. Yes, yes. The employment practice liability is that wrongful termination, sexual harassment, all of that kind of stuff we talked about. That's critical to have. We also talked about the cyber liability, data breach. If someone steals the data of your customers or your company and they fraudulently use it, whatever data you use, it can be Cash App now. It can be Zelle. A lot of businesses use this stuff to transfer customers' pay, especially at hair salons. They pay this way. If that stuff is breached, you got a problem. And then we talked about the commercial auto insurance and the Uber Eats and putting a magnet on your car. We talked about hired and non-owned auto. And one thing I just want to, and business interruption. Mm-hmm. What happens if you have a claim and you can no longer work in your place? How do you get protection against that so your income doesn't stop? And how do you hold on to your key people? That's very important when you own a restaurant too, because you don't want your chef going somewhere else to work because he has your recipes and or people come to that restaurant because they really like that chef. So you want to make sure that you have the right coverages in place.
For some of your viewers, for some of your viewers that are investors in the real estate game, that works for that too. For if you have real estate rental properties and there's a fire and your tenant can't stay there, they have a loss of rents and coverages like that that will pay you for the time they're not there and actually pay to put them into a hotel to stay so you don't lose your tenant. There's a lot of coverages like that that are built into some of these policies that you may not know about that you should definitely ask about. You just reminded me about that when you said that. So sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Well, I am so thankful, Billy, that you took the time out. I know you could have been doing some other things today, but I appreciate you taking the time to jump on and to talk about these things because people need to know. They need to know when you become a business owner, there are so many things to be thought out and you don't even know because sometimes it's the unknown unknown. So my desire is to be able to pull that onion back and reveal layers of things that you need to know so that you go in and you're not flying by the seat of your pants. And so next week, we're going to be talking about technology, how technology plays a part in business. I know there are a lot of people, they don't want to change and adjust to all of the new technology that we have. However, the world is kind of forcing your hand. And it doesn't mean just because you use technology that you have to lose the human touch. You can have both. But we're going to be talking about the different types of technology, different things that are necessary to make sure your business is running while you're there and while you're not there. So Antonio Golston is going to be presenting next week. And I just want to tell you guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I hope that we've added value to what you're doing and to your day. You could have been doing anything else today too, but I appreciate
Can I get one last thought before I sign off? First of all, I want to thank you for having such a nice project that you are taking on that you didn't have to. I think what you're doing is great for entrepreneurs, aspiring business owners, and current business owners. And what I hope that everybody understands about this project is what's happening here is you're putting together people to do the heavy lifting for a business. And the reason why I call it the heavy lifting is whatever business you're going into or have, it's probably something that you know or are good at. The parts that you're not good at, maybe the technology, maybe the insurance, maybe the finances, maybe the legal setup of it. And you know what? That makes you tired in trying to grow a business, trying to figure out all these things. And what she's actually doing here is setting you up with a lot of people that are actually pretty good in those lines of business to help take that part off of you and let you focus on what you're good at, which is grow your business. So I have wanted to say that on your behalf because I think it's an excellent idea to come up with this. And I hope people understand that that's part of of all of these webinars, these Zoom meetings that you're doing, is you're giving people a chance to, nobody wants to sit through this. I get it. Nobody wants to sit through insurance. No one wants to sit through taxes, and no one wants to sit through technology and hear how to, do things that they don't even understand. But what you do want to hear, trust me, is that there's somebody who can take care of that for you. And that's what she's setting up for you. I applaud you for this, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but I just
wanted to say. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, if I don't see any questions in the chat box, so what I will say is I hope that everyone has a phenomenal evening, and be well and go and be great. And thank you so much for tuning in. See you next week.